Hey everybody, welcome back to Ride Review. My name is Mitch, and this is the Joe Rev from Retrospec. I reviewed a couple of the Retrospec bikes in the past, and the new ones that they have coming out are pretty exciting, so I'm glad to be sitting here chatting with you about the Joe Rev. And before we get into the review, I did want to mention that Retrospec didn't pay us to do this review. They did send us the product for free, but all these opinions are going to be our own. And as far as opinions go, it's not really about opinions, it's really just about if this bike is right for you. So this is the perfect ride series, we're calling it. And basically the idea is, there's no such thing as a perfect e-bike, but there might be a perfect e-bike for you. So is the Joe Rev the perfect e-bike for you? Well, that is what we're gonna find out in today's video. And one more quick note before we jump into the totality of the review. We are having our Micromobility America event coming up. If you are an EV enthusiast, a brand, store owner, somebody in the e-bike industry, we'd love to invite you out November 14th and 15th in Costa Mesa, California. Let's get on with the review. Now, the first and most important thing that we will chat about today for most folks is gonna be the price point here. So the price point on the Joe Rev is $12.99. Now for the price point, we are getting a really solid deal here. We've got a 750 watt motor in the rear, a 500 watt hour battery. We've got these nice big chunky 27.5 by 3-inch tires, and really all the things it lacks as far as maybe some of like the technological stuff, like there's not an LCD screen, some things like that, really is kind of made up for in the value proposition when you consider sort of the platform we're getting here. Then there's kind of the style. So this BMX niche style, it's not something that a lot of people are doing. There are a few companies out there, so don't leave me a comment that says there's lots of people doing it. There are a few, but I think at this price point, it becomes a little bit interesting for the BMX electric bike niche. So let's jump into some of those specs right now. Now the first spec, and the most important one, is that 750 watt motor here in the rear. So this bike is rated up to 350 pounds, and if you are 350 pounds, you're gonna be jumping on this. The frame can handle it, but is the motor gonna support that? The fact that it's 750 watts tells me that it will. So I'm about 215. This shirt makes me look like I'm 245, but it handled me really well. Gets me up to 20 miles per hour. The torque is there. So I think somebody at 350, you might experience a little less torque out of this setup here, but I think it'll still get you up to that top speed because we have, a nice powerful motor there in the back. As far as noise goes, pretty quiet. A lot of these e-bikes, when you ride around, there's motor noise, and that sometimes gets, messed up with the tire noise as well. A lot of those fat tire bikes are big, they're knobby. They do make quite a bit of noise when we're out here on the concrete, but we do have a very street-centric tire here, so I think that sort of allows the motor to, be picked out, and you realize it's not really that loud. So those are some of the trade-offs when you're looking at geared motors. They do tend to make a little bit more noise, but you do get a little bit more low-end torque, but here, really it's not too bad. The next thing to look at is gonna be the battery and our range here. So here we've got a 48 volt, 500 watt hour battery, which is going to translate roughly to 25 to 30 miles sort of realistic range. I think Retrospec claims 40 miles. And if you were somebody that was, pretty small, again, a little bit, you're not pushing the 350, which is the max weight here, you might be able to get closer to 40 miles, but with it being a 10.4 ampere battery, it doesn't seem very realistic to me. Again, ideal conditions, maybe a couple downhills, I think it is doable, but for most folks riding this, 25 to 30 miles is probably what I would expect for the average rider, doing the average speed here. So we talked about how much power you have here, how far you might be able to go, and the next thing to talk about is terrain. Now, if you think BMX, there's really only one terrain you're thinking about, and I think the guys that designed this bike were thinking the same thing. There is no suspension up here in the front, so it's not gonna be something you're gonna wanna take off-road. We do have like larger, oversized 3-inch tires, which technically brings it into the fat tire realm, but they are a very street-centric tire. Nice brown walls on there, a pretty decent amount of air volume in there, so it does feel good riding around. So like here in the parking lot, we do have these like wood spacers kind of in some of the slats here, and rolling over those in some of the smaller tire bikes, you do tend to feel them a little bit more, but I couldn't really feel them here on this bike. So I think the fact that they're 27.5s, better attack angle, more air volume in there, it just lends itself to be a little bit more comfortable than you might expect, being that it has no suspension whatsoever. And the seat in the back, that's smaller. It's a very sort of like BMX style. I don't think pleated is the right word, but it does have that BMX vibe to it. So the fact that it really is sticking with the niche, the only environment you're gonna wanna take this on is gonna be, basically concrete. So if it's not concrete, I wouldn't take it on it. I mean, you probably could. 3-inch tires probably will handle a little bit better off-road than something, even though they're street-centric, they probably handle okay off-road. But again, no suspension, you're gonna feel all the bumps, so really it needs to stick to concrete, asphalt, pavement. We talked about some of the most important specs and features, in my opinion, such as power, battery, where you're gonna ride this thing. And speaking of riding it, I think the next thing to do is the ride feel. So I'm gonna send it out to myself and we're gonna take it for a ride test and see how it handles, see some of the features as far as how it's riding around. Hey guys, we're out here at Power On e-bikes. We are testing out the Joe Rev, which is back here. This is the ride test portion. So we're gonna do some riding. Now, first things first, we're gonna turn it on, except for, oh, look at this, I left it on. So it's already on. We're gonna put it in 1 here. Now, something about this bike that really probably shortens this ride test quite a bit is normally we check for top speed, especially on these cadence bikes, we'll check for top speeds in the different levels of pedal assist, but we don't know how fast we're going. So we can make some good guesses. So let's do that, we'll make some guesses. There's no gears to go through, it's a single speed, so it's very simple as far as that goes. Now 1 probably takes us to 8 miles an hour. 2 kicks in there a little bit. So that's gonna take us to about 12, 13. And these are just guesses, by the way. I'm just going off a feel here. Now when you do switch your cadence levels, it does, I mean, you can feel it bump up as far as the torque goes. So we're in 3, probably like 15, 4, again, bumping up quite a bit here. Probably like 18, 17, something like that. And then 5 gets us to our top speed, which as it comes is 20 miles an hour. Now there's not a lot of like advanced settings or anything we can jump into and kind of fix that like we can on some of these other bikes. So that is sort of what it is as far as that goes. Using just the front brake because my other hand's recording. Now, when it comes to ghost pedaling, we do get quite a bit of ghost pedaling. I would say pedal-wise, right about 12, 13 miles an hour. It seems to fall off pretty hard as far as us being able to put in any additional force into it. So if you're looking for a bike that, you know, you want to go 20 miles per hour, the gearing's not there. Again, it's a single speed, not really geared for top speed. It's a pretty decent starting out gear. So if I go ahead and stop here real quick, feathering that front brake, we'll go ahead and put this into 0, and we can tell we're in 0 because none of these guys are lighted up. So that's 1, that's 0. So in 0, the throttle still works, which might be nice to get started, but what we're really testing is how easy this thing is to start off when we're just pedaling. So we're gonna start off just pedaling. Pretty easy to start off pedaling. This is probably geared for, like if I had to put it into like a speed, probably looking at like 10 miles an hour, very comfortable cadence. The gearing feels about right for me. So about 10, 11 miles an hour is kind of where it's geared for at being a single speed. And again, we'll put it into 1 and our throttle is gonna work. Well, it works in 0, but I did put it into 1. Now we're just cruising. Now what's nice about this is that with the throttle, whether it's, you know, in 0 through 5, the throttle's gonna work. And it's gonna take us to our top speed no matter what, which is nice. So this is not gonna cap us at a top speed. Get up to about that 20, and even in 5, still giving us the same amount of torque curve and everything. So you do have full access to the power here. It's not in sync with our power levels here, our pedal assist levels, if you will. So that is kind of nice. If you're pedaling around and cruising, again, let's say you've got it off and you're just cruising around at that 10 miles an hour, you see a situation you need to get out of, you can just hit the throttle, you still have full access to the power. So I'm glad that they did that on this bike. I think that makes a lot of sense. And then again, because it's a single speed, if you are looking for 20 miles per hour, you're not really gonna be pedaling, you are ghost pedaling at that point. And on some bikes, especially if they got a lot of gears, like they had plenty of opportunity to get that right. Here, they don't have a lot of gears, so that wasn't really the design. So I'm not gonna knock them for, you know, for ghost pedaling on this particular bike. I think it makes a lot of sense based on, you know, the design of it, where you can imagine somebody riding it, etc. So not a huge deal. Brakes wise, they are mechanical. we probably already mentioned that. But the fact that we got mechanical brakes, maybe a ding. We're not going super fast, and the bike really isn't super heavy. You know, we do have a 750 watt motor back there, so it is gonna get us up to 20 miles per hour. If you are constantly cruising around 20 miles per hour, looking to upgrade to hydraulics might make a lot of sense. But otherwise, ride feel wise, I mean, it handles like how you would imagine a big BMX with some oversized tires would handle. It still's got a lot of that, turning capability as far as feels pretty nimble. And again, we don't have that front suspension up there, so you're gonna feel all the bumps. It's not too bad, but it does feel like how you'd expect a non-suspension bike to feel. We do have those bigger tires, so we do have more air volume in there. So that's kind of automatically gonna make it a little bit more comfortable. But again, all in all, not too bad. One of the things that I would change, I don't know how I talked about it yet, is over here on the left, you can see we've got our brake lever in between where the throttle is and the grip. So our brake lever attaches right here. I'd probably take this off. Well, I'd take off the throttle, loosen this, move this down a little bit, because I still could easily access that. You see I got plenty of room for grabbing it. So I would switch that over there so I'm not stretching this far out to hit the throttle. I just have the throttle right there. That'll make it a little bit easier. I feel like I'd have a little bit more control. I'm not spreading my hand out as much when we're going to use the throttle. So those would be a couple little modifications that I would make. But we'll see. I mean, I think this is a really cool platform. I got a buddy of mine who has one, and he's talking about doing all sorts of modifications on it. So I might have to do a follow-up video and see what some of his mods are on it. How he changed it, whether he's getting more top speed out of it. He talked about maybe adding some suspension on it. I think that could be really interesting. So I'll see if I can follow up there. But guys, I think that's gonna do it for the ride test. I mean, really the consensus is, or the final thoughts about the ride feel, is it feels exactly kind of how you'd expect. It handles very nimbly. I don't know how to say that word correctly, but it handles nice. Kind of handles how you'd imagine. And yeah, no surprises here as far as how that goes. So let's get back to the rest of the review. With the ride test out of the way, the next thing to look at is going to be some of the geometry measurements here. And the most important geometry measurements are all about you. So let's talk about the minimum and maximum seat heights. The minimum seat height here is 27.5 inches from the top of the seat to the pedals at the lowest point, and 33 inches from the seat to the ground. The maximum seat height is 35 inches from the seat to the pedal at the lowest point, and 40 inches from the top of the seat to the ground. Now, as far as measurements go for you, I think those are pretty much the most important ones. If you are gonna be ordering this directly from Retrospec, there's plenty of videos on YouTube on how to measure your inseam to see if a bike is gonna fit you. So that is what I would recommend. Now, roughly, if you're not gonna do all the research into how to measure yourself correctly, roughly this is gonna translate into a height range of probably like 5'4" to 6 foot, something like that. Now, there is no step through, so usually when you have a step through, even if the seat is up a little bit higher, it does kind of give you some flexibility, easier to get on and off the bike. We don't have that here, so we do have a step over instead of the seat height. And really, if you look at the seat right here at the 27.5, this is pretty much where you're gonna be, stepping over. So it's about 27 inches to step over. So it's not something you're gonna lift your leg up and put it over. It's definitely one of those swinging around type bikes. So if you're not in the swinging around height range, then you might have to start looking at something that's a little bit smaller. All right, guys, so if the Joe Rev is ticking off a lot of those boxes for you, where can you get your hands on one? Well, you can order it straight from Retrospec's website, or you can find a local dealer as well. They do have some dealers around, maybe even in your area. It's one of those bikes that, you kind of know what you're getting into, so not necessarily like a have to test ride sort of bike in my opinion, because it is what it is, right? But if you want to go in, find a dealer, test ride it, you can definitely do that here for them, which is nice to have that option. What are my closing thoughts on the Joe Rev? Well, it is exactly what you'd expect it to be. It is a BMX style bike that has enough power with that 750 watt in the back. We got a 500 watt hour battery here, so decent amount of range for the types of riding you'll be doing on this bike. Single speed, not gonna be good for hills, but again, flat land, concrete jungle, that's where it's designed to be at. So is it for you? I don't know. I'm just a dude talking to a camera. But if you have any questions for me, let me know down in the comments. I love talking to you guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.